This is huge news about Prince Harry and Invictus. His games could get cancelled.
Now this is seismic. This is royal story of the year. This is an unmitigated disaster for Harry. A nightmare on wheels. This is catastrophic. And the reason why is because Invictus is all he's got.
Boeing has, I believe, cut ties. Story for News Nation will come out later today about how Boeing was the huge sponsor. The contract has ended and they are not re-signing.
Prince Harry has spent 6 years telling the world that the Invictus Games are the best thing he has ever built. This week, the people who signed the checks started to disagree. The word going around royal circles right now is one nobody ever thought they would pin on Harry's proudest project, cancelled. That is the whisper doing the rounds online this week, that the 2027 games in Birmingham, the ones Harry fought to bring home, could be quietly pulled before they ever begin.
We know that African Parks, which is a good charity but mired in allegations of the abuse tribes in Africa. Yikes. Well, Harry's on the board of that charity and used to run it. Then there's Centre Barley, another good charity that Harry lost control of following a bitter public row with Sophie Chandauka, who now controls the charity. It was his charity that he lost control of. And then there's foundation or whatever it's called this week, which has effectively been shut. There's no money. There's no... All the other charities were disaster. Is Harry. Harry is Invictus. And you're telling me it could be cancelled.
Now, park that for a second. Here's the detail that turns a rumor into something real. Boeing, one of the biggest names in aviation, a company that does not exactly struggle to find a spare few million. They sponsored the last games. They have now walked away from Birmingham, and they are not the only ones drifting toward the exit.
Massive, huge company. Not a company who are short of a few bob. They sponsored last year's, and the year before that, they pulled out of Birmingham. So that's one huge sponsor. Part of Harry coming to Birmingham this week. He was supposed to go and see his dad. He was supposed to have the kids. His other main reason was for the Invictus launch is to go and have meetings to try and drum up more support, drum up more sponsorship.
No, and we've said before that this return to the UK for the 1 year countdown is a non-event, like a nothing burger. And we've said, haven't we, what is this the countdown to? A diminished event which is losing sponsors left and right.
When a company that size quietly declines to renew, it is rarely about the money. It is about who they would have to stand beside in the photograph. And that, more than any figure on a spreadsheet, is what has the organizers rattled. Here's the line every royal watcher keeps circling back to, the one that should keep Harry awake at night, that the fastest way to save the Invictus Games might be for Harry himself to leave them, that the founder has somehow become the very thing frightening the money away. Invictus was the last clean room in the house. Everything else the Sussexes touched had smoke curling out from under the door. This was the one that still worked. Now there is smoke under this door too. So, what is really going on? Is this the usual Sussex squad panic? Or is Harry's proudest achievement coming apart at the seams? Stay with me. By the end of this, you will know exactly why the check writers got nervous, exactly which soldier says he was left behind, and exactly what happened in one brutal 48 hours that no PR team on earth could spin.
And now you've got this exclusive, this massive scoop that the whole thing could be pulled. It's truly shocking. The reason why is because this Invictus brand has been tainted by its association with the Sussexes. We know that everything they touch turns to mud. We've seen it in business, we've seen it with their broadcasting work, and now we're seeing it in the charity sector. That why should Boeing and other sponsors pump millions in when they're going to be associated with a couple who the public don't like, who the public don't trust, who often the public don't believe?
This is the very reason why everyone who originally worked on and set up Invictus no longer works there. Since leaving the royal fold, the foundation has become a cash cow for Harry and Meghan, and no doubt some others. It's all bubbling to the surface. And it is bubbling to the surface thanks to Paula Frolic Uncensored. She is our guest today. Her show at News Nation, she has been able to finally get these funding questions about the $63 million Invictus Games spend into the mainstream media.
Let us start where every good scandal starts. Follow the money. As Harry was collecting applause, one American journalist, Paula Frolic, sat down and did the thing nobody in his camp wanted done. She read the accounts, line by line, and what she found does not look like a charity in rude health.
The most recent games held in Vancouver and Whistler in February 2025 brought together 543 wounded military veterans from 23 countries. The total cost 63.2 million Canadian, or approximately $118,352 per competitor. For comparison, the US Warrior Games, a similar competition for wounded American service members, runs on roughly $2 million a year. Germany's Invictus-style competition costs about $200,000 and involves half as many participants.
The last games, held in Vancouver and Whistler, brought together 543 wounded veterans. The total cost, $63 million. That works out at roughly $118,000 per competitor. For comparison, the American Warrior Games, a near identical event, runs on about $2 million a year. Germany's version costs around $200,000. So you are entitled to ask where $63 million went. But here's the number that stops you cold. In that same year, the foundation cut its direct grants to veteran organizations. Not by a little, by 63%, from over £500,000 down to just $200,000. In the very same year, its own income rose by 41% and its cash reserves swelled past $2 million. You'd think a charity suddenly swimming in extra income would spend more on its veterans, not less. Read that number again. More money coming in, more money sitting in the bank, and the grants to the actual wounded soldiers slashed by nearly 2/3. The sheer brass neck of it.
The numbers, Paula reports, raised red flags. In 2024, the foundation cut its direct grants to veteran organizations by 63%, from £534,973 to just £200,328. The same year that foundation income rose 41%, a new six-figure executive role was added, and cash reserves grew to $2.3 million.
When Froelich went hunting for where the rest of it went, the trail only got stranger. A licensing fee that was oddly redacted, legal costs that tripled with no explanation, a mystery American company on the books that nobody could quite account for, none of it illegal, necessarily, all of it the sort of thing that makes a corporate sponsor suddenly remember a prior engagement. A charity that runs on a founder's fame is a boat with one engine. This week, that engine started to cough. Then there is Birmingham. The British taxpayer has been asked to underwrite the whole thing to the tune of £26 million. £26 million, and with the clock ticking down, the reporting suggests Birmingham has scraped together around $4 million from roughly 11 sponsors. $4 million against a bill of 26. In a city that all but declared itself bankrupt back in 2023. That is the gap. Organizers are now, we're told, knocking on the doors of local Birmingham businesses, having once had names like Jaguar and Boeing on the books. Gaps like that between what you promised and what you can bring in are exactly where a word like cancelled is born.
And the problem is that us here in the UK, us taxpayer fools, are committing funds to this. I can't believe this. Paula reports the next Invictus Games are scheduled for Birmingham in 2027. The UK government has committed up to £26 million in public funds, despite the city effectively declaring bankruptcy in 2023. It only exited that status in February of this year. With roughly 15 months to go, Birmingham has just 11 unnamed sponsors contributing an estimated £4 million combined.
And he includes a line that I think really illustrates the great discomfort with Meghan's presence at the game, the fact that she's bling. She's bling, not rehabilitation. That is the direct quote. Now let's have a little look at some of the vibes that Tom Bauer's referring to. He said that the focus on Meghan was all about, selling what she was wearing, brand enhancement, trying to place her as a fashionista.
Numbers frighten the accountants. It was a book that frightened the brand. Tom Bauer, the biographer who needs no introduction to anyone who has followed this couple. In his book, Bauer goes after the one thing the Sussexes thought was untouchable. And honestly, he pulls no punches.
Bauer suggests that the 2025 Games in Canada were overshadowed by Meghan Markle's public appearances, referring to the event as the Meghan Games. He cites Canadian executives who allegedly felt Meghan was a distraction and that her presence was more about than veteran rehabilitation.
Bauer claims that inside those 2025 games, there was a nickname supposedly doing the rounds. not the Invictus Games, the Meghan Games. He cites people who were there, people who felt Meghan's presence had become less about the wounded and more about the brand, more about the bling, as it was put, than the rehabilitation. Then comes the detail that made everyone's jaw drop. Bauer describes a wheelchair basketball match where, he claims, just 43 paying spectators turned up. 43. And that around 100 people were, in his telling, gently herded around Harry and Meghan for the cameras, to make an empty arena look like a movement.
The staged atmosphere. At a 2025 wheelchair basketball match, Bauer claims only 43 paying spectators attended. He alleges that about 100 people were corralled around Harry and Meghan by organizers specifically for photo opportunities to create the false impression of high engagement.
An empty hall is one thing. An empty hall dressed up to look full for a camera pointed at two very famous faces is quite another. That is the image that stuck, and images like that travel. Now, to be clear about the register here, the Invictus Games Foundation and Harry's representatives have called these claims disgusting and deeply disrespectful. That is their word, on the record, and it belongs in this story. This is Bauer's account and their furious denial of it.
They put out a statement after Bauer's excerpts in the Sunday Times, pretty much admonishing Tom Bauer and saying that the focus should be on the veterans and that Tom Bauer was out of touch and he was doing damage to the veterans by the comments that he made.
But you understand why it landed. It fed the exact fear the sponsors already carried, that the games had stopped being about the soldiers and started being about the show. A sponsor will forgive a great many things. What they will not forgive is being cast as an extra in somebody else's vanity project. That is the rumor that refuses to die, and it is about to get a great deal more human.
No, Tom Bauer is observing the damage being done to the veterans. That's why he spoke out. And if the Invictus Games Foundation wants the focus to be on the veterans seriously, then what the hell have they been doing for the last, I don't know, how long's it been now? 6 years? What are they doing? Because they know the focus is on Meghan Markle, and they by a much lesser extent. So it's up to them to change this. They have the ability and the power to change this.
So this guy, Scott Snow, is an amazing chap. One of the faces of the 2023 Invictus Games in Düsseldorf in Germany, a decorated Canadian Navy diver and Special Forces veteran, whom Invictus chose to feature in its official Team Canada video. So this guy's a big deal, right? He really, really matters. Scott Snow, somebody that's obviously had awful trauma as a result of war.
Here's where the story stops being about money and books and starts being about one man. His name is Scott Snow. He is a decorated Canadian Navy diver and a former Special Forces veteran, exactly the kind of person the Invictus Games exist for. Snow competed at the games in Düsseldorf. He wanted to do it, he said, so his two daughters could see their father in uniform one last time, his swan song, he called it. Then, in one wheelchair event, something went wrong. There were no restraints holding him in place. He reached up for the ball, went over backwards, and, in his own words, the rest is history. At the time, he thought he had walked away with nothing worse than a knock. In fact, he had flown home with a fractured neck, a fractured cervical and lumbar spine, a torn quadricep, head trauma.
His physiotherapist, a woman he'd relied on more than a dozen prior surgeries, refused to work on him. She used some words about me, he said, saying that I was terribly stubborn. And she said, go and get an x-ray. And I went and got an x-ray and they said my neck was fractured. So isn't it lucky that that physio, Scott Snow, a bit of tough love. She was absolutely right about that. He was eventually diagnosed with a fractured cervical and lumbar spine, a torn quadricep, which I thought was a dinosaur, and head trauma.
At 43 years old, Scott Snow ended up living in a retirement facility. The rehab center had no beds for him. He says he now relies on a fentanyl patch just to manage the pain. He is a single father. The physiotherapy bills, he says, became impossible. Here's the part that turns your stomach. Snow says that once the games had used his story to sell tickets, the replies simply stopped. That he reached out to Invictus and to Prince Harry's office, and that Harry's office never got back to him at all. His words, no phone calls, no checkup, no nothing. He says he felt abandoned.
So before filing the lawsuit, Snow emails the Veterans Affairs Department, the Invictus Games Foundation, Prince Harry, not looking for a settlement, just a conversation, folks, just recognition. He said, I just wanted to help and make things better for the Invictus Games. He said, I emailed them all a couple of times. I never heard from anybody. He eventually got a meeting with the outgoing and incoming Invictus leadership in Canada. So fair enough, Invictus saw him. He described it as a good conversation, but according to Paulie Froelich, never heard from Invictus again. And this is an organization that Harry's running and he's receiving awards for. Scotty Snow, the Snow Dog, doesn't hear a word from Harry or Invictus. Prince Harry's office reports never reached out at all.
Now the details here matter and they cut both ways. Scott Snow's lawsuit is against the Canadian military, not against Harry. And the insurance questions are apparently being sorted for the next games. Although here is a figure to chew on, ensuring the athletes at those games would have cost, by one estimate, somewhere between $250,000 and $1 million, against a budget running into the tens of millions. Loose change down the back of the sofa, as one commentator put it. But sit with the picture for a second. In the very same window, this soldier says nobody called him back. Harry was named the #1 leader on a global sports list. Honored, celebrated, held up to the world. For Invictus, the man who tells the world Invictus saves lives, and a wounded veteran saying quietly that when it mattered, no one was there.
Athlete insurance coverage for an event the size of Düsseldorf in Germany would have run somewhere between 275,000 and €1 million, as Paula puts it, a rounding error for the game, which had a €40 million budget. What is that in dollars? 65 million. So it's like 1.5. That is small change. That is loose change down the back of the sofa. Now, I will stress that it's not clear that Invictus are obliged to do that, but it surprises me that on Harry's watch has happened.
I met with somebody from the charity world, Invictus, in London, and they were telling me, they came down and they were telling me several things. Number one, there is a chance. There is a chance that the games will be postponed. If they are postponed, the games will be canceled. If they are canceled, it is over. Now, the reason why they may or may not be postponed, we will find out in 2 weeks, okay? Because he is here to meet up with corporate leaders.
Right. This is the part where I stop the music for a moment. The truth here is more damning than the panic. Is Invictus officially canceled? No. Let us be honest about that. There is no official statement, no press release. If you believe the loudest voices online, it is already dead. But the loudest version of the canceled story traces back to a single commentary show, and its sources told me, on paper, the games are still booked for Birmingham, the 10th to the 17th of July, 2027, and that £26 million government backstop. Here is the twist most of the outrage misses. That money was put there for one reason, to make sure the games go ahead even if the sponsors fall short. It is not proof of collapse. It is the safety net designed to prevent one.
The British government has given £29 million. The deal is you match or exceed through corporate or private donations. They only have $4 million. Now, this was done over the last year before both Harry and Meghan kind of went. So they're coming over. He's going to beg. Now, $25 million, I don't know if you know this, pretty damn hard to raise. It's also pretty hard to raise in an atmosphere like England.
There is more. Harry cannot be sacked from Invictus at all. He is a patron, not a trustee. The foundation is its own independent charity with its own board. And for all the talk of him losing everything to the press, the fuller record is messier than the headline. He beat the Mirror Group in court. He won an apology and a settlement out of the Sun's publisher. This week's defeat is real. It is one chapter though, not the whole book. So no, the wheels have not come off. Not yet. And anyone selling you a done deal is selling you the loud version of a quieter, messier truth. But here is why the story still matters, and why the sponsors are still edgy. Mind you, you do not need an official cancellation to have a genuine crisis. The grant cut is real, so are the sponsor exits. The soldier's account, also real. And the reputation problem is very, very real. The canceled rumor is loud. The rot underneath it is louder.
Right now, they are understaffed, they are ill, and frankly, if they don't raise the money, there is a very good chance. Nobody with any reputation wants to work with them. Problem.
And of course, Prince Harry is returning to the UK in the next week or two in his ongoing legal battle with the owners of the Daily Mail newspaper. And this is a legal action about which the King is not that delighted, because the monarchy don't really like suing Her Majesty's Press or His Majesty's Press, do they?
No, it's sort of never explain, never complain is their mantra. But Harry is on this sort of great mission in life, sort out the press because he feels that he's a victim.
Then came the week that tied it all together with a bow. Timing in this story is everything. On the 7th of July, Harry lost his big case against the publisher of the Daily Mail. Every one of the 97 allegations dismissed. 2 days later, would you believe it? The cancelled Invictus story exploded across royal media. Coincidence, maybe. Convenient timing, some would mutter. The pundits did not treat it as one. They treated it as the same story. A man losing in one arena and his last safe refuge burning down in the next.
So the Sussexes are effectively that the king is lying, because when I talk about the palace authorities and the firm, it is the king. And that's not a great way to start the trip, is it? And the context to this is all of the to and fro, the circus that we've had about the armed royal protection. Harry saying that, you know, he's awaiting an answer, then it's kicked into the long grass. Then he says, well, then we're only going to come for a day, or we're not going to come to London. So that was bad enough. But for the Sussexes, Buckingham Palace lying is a new low.
And it did not stop there. At the very moment Harry needed a calm, dignified homecoming, the palace row blew up instead. The reporting says Buckingham Palace withdrew its offer to host him, and that the Sussex camp effectively accused the palace of lying about it. Calling the palace liars, as one commentator put it, was a new low. And Meghan, or so we're told, made the call to keep herself and the children back home in California all together. So the trip that was meant to be about family, about a grandfather finally seeing his grandchildren, became instead a solo mission wrapped in a security fight and a courtroom defeat.
Now it seems of the failure to get the wraparound police protection, Harry's now saying that Meghan and the kids are not going to come.
Well, that's exactly right, and that's a tragedy for the king. So not only is he effectively being called a liar by the Sussexes over the accommodation offer, or at least the firm, he will be deprived of seeing Archie and Lily.
1 week, a lost court case, a palace at war, a charity hemorrhaging sponsors, and a wounded soldier's story hanging over all of it. You couldn't make it up. You genuinely could not make it up.
Harry is at war again. This feels like this has reignited the feud all over again for me.
It most definitely has, and it's toxic. Before, it was a circus with will he get the armed security, won't he? It was unfortunate, it was negative headlines, but this is one side calling the other side liars.
And this is always the problem with Harry, is that everything becomes, will they, won't they? And it's a distraction from what should be a celebration of people who've rebuilding their lives after horrible injuries from the military, whatever, from around the world. But if the story is Harry and the king getting together, then that is not the point at the Invictus Games.
So let me bring you back to that line from the very beginning, the one the commentators keep circling, that if Harry walked away from Invictus, the sponsors would come flooding back. Sit with how brutal that is. This is the man who built it, who named it, who stood on stages around the world and wept about what it meant. And the cold corporate verdict now doing the rounds is that the single biggest problem the Invictus Games have is the man whose idea it was.
I've got a solution.
Go on.
If Harry ceases to be involved in the Invictus Games, all the sponsors will be back. Just imagine if Sir David Beckham was the head of the Invictus.
Oh, wow.
It'll be bigger than the World Cup. They will literally, and Airbus. All of those guys will be back. Similarly, what about the amazing Mike Tyndall if he was the head of Invictus? There's so many people that could do it.
And Tom Brady owns Birmingham City Football Club as well. They get him involved. He could donate a few million. He's got enough.
Brady would be a triumph.
Yeah.
Almost anybody would be better.
That is the tragedy underneath all the gossip. Not that Harry failed at something he was bad at, that he may be failing at the one thing he was undeniably good at. The brand he bolted it to got too heavy. Everything the Sussexes touch, the money seems to have decided, turns into something it would rather not stand next to.
It was a project built with royal machinery, like I said, by the Royal Foundation. It was meant to serve wounded veterans.
Whether Birmingham goes ahead in 2027, we will find out soon enough. The taxpayer backstop may well drag it over the line, but even if it does, the questions do not vanish. Where did that $63 million go? What happened to the grants that were promised to the veterans? Why does a decorated soldier like Scott Snow say he was forgotten? And when a sponsor looks at the founder today, why do they now see a risk where they once saw a reason? Make of that what you will. Here is my honest verdict, and then I want yours. And if you ask me, it is a brutal one. Invictus was supposed to be the proof that Harry could build something that outlived the drama. Instead, it has become the clearest sign yet that the drama follows him into everything he touches. Even the good thing, especially the good thing. So tell me in the comments, do you reckon the Invictus Games survive with Prince Harry at the center of them? Or would the kindest thing he could do for his own creation be to step quietly aside and let it breathe?
Everything about them is an agenda. Everything about them is transactional. And I think when veterans are paying the price, that is the ultimate.
I read every single one. If this is the kind of story you want followed properly, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who care about the royals. And subscribe. There is a lot more coming this week. The next chapter drops in a couple of days, and it goes deep on that palace row and what the king is said to have really felt about it. You will want to be here. This is Star Spotlight, where we follow the money, follow the story, and never look away from the detail everyone else politely forgets.